Hola! This is part 2 of the future of our world. George Gammon starts off by looking at what history teaches us. This is a quote from a Hungarian Jew from the documentary The Last Days. People wonder, how is it that we didn't do something? We didn't run away. We didn't hide. Well, things didn't happen all at once. Things happened very slowly. So each time a new law came out or a new restriction, we said, well, just another thing. It will blow over. When we had to wear the yellow star, to be outside, we started to worry. So, whether it's a yellow star, a green star, or a red star, when governments divide society, when they segregate society into different groups, when they make it illegal for businesses to serve certain groups, it never ends well. For more information, go to George Gammon. Hola, from Colombia. With the present great world confusion, I wish to do my part to accelerate the evolution of human consciousness. Please help by subscribing and sharing these videos. Thank you. Step number 3, the social credit score. In step number 1, we talked about how the central bank digital currency will give the central planners all of your financial data, as far as the transactions you're doing day to day in real time. This will be directly in your credit score. If you buy something that is not approved, it will lower your credit score, and if you apply for a mortgage with a low score, you will not be approved, or if you are approved, it will be with a much higher interest rate. Your child may not be allowed to go to that specific school or university you wanted him to go to, or he may not be allowed to play in any sports or after school activities. Why? Because you and your family are just too dangerous. For the greater good, we need to protect society. In step number 2, we talked about how the health passport also leads into your social credit score. If you have that red star, or if you have been in contact with anyone who has a red star, or if you are a business that served someone with a red star, your social score will definitely go down. Let's look at the book by Neil Howe, The Fourth Turning. We will look at what Neil wrote about the last 4 generations. Let's also pay particular attention to that last generation, which he calls Generation Z, the Homelanders. These are kids born after 2000. They are now starting to enter the workforce and are very sophisticated with social media. They have attitudes towards freedom that are far, far different than what you and I were raised with. Neil points out that they were very overprotective when they were raised. Therefore, the majority of them will value safety far more than they will value freedom. 1. Prophets grow up as increasingly indulged post-crisis children, become of age as the narcissistic young crusaders of the awakening. They become moralistic midlifers and emerge as the wise elders guiding the next crisis. The most recent example is the baby boomer generation. 2. Nomads grow up as underprotected children during an awakening, becoming of age as the alienated young adults of a post-awakening world. These individuals mellow into pragmatic midlife leaders during a crisis and age into tough post-crisis elders. The most recent example is Generation X. Number 3. Heroes grow up as increasingly protected post-awakening children, becoming of age as the heroic team workers of a crisis. Heroes demonstrate hubris as energetic midlifers and emerge as powerful elders, attacked by the next awakening. The most recent example is the millennial generation. 4. Artists grow up as overprotected children during a crisis, become of age as the sensible young adults in a post-crisis world. They eventually break free as indecisive midlife leaders during an awakening and age into empathetic post-awakening elders. The most recent example is the Homelander generation, or Generation Z. It is not just that we have a Generation Z, and a lot of them, that value safety more than they value freedom. But it is also how they dealt with authority when they were being raised. More specifically, how they dealt with conflict and how they used authority when they were growing up. Let's see what Jonathan Haidt, the author of Coddling of the American Mind, has to say. Children need a lot more unsupervised time because this would allow them to settle conflict on their own. We have kept these children constantly supervised and tell them to go to an adult or an authority figure to settle those conflicts. These children believe that someone with a descending view is dangerous. The descending view person needs to be controlled and crushed. If a general opinion is that you are a jerk, then you must have your life destroyed and crushed by the mob on social media. That is far more dangerous, in my opinion, than not wearing a mask. All of this is a perfect setup for a society where a government-issued social score would not only be possible, but it would be welcomed. If we get the central bank digital currency, a health passport, and a social score, it simply leads to the loss of freedom. So what is the end game? When you go back and look at the history of empire, all of human history going back to ancient Sumeria, and look at the fall of empire, there are only a handful of reasons for it. Occasionally you will find an instant disaster, like an earthquake. However, for the most part, what we find is that major civilizations, great powers, tend to fall because of an erosion of freedom. This is because they make it more difficult for people to live their lives and be productive. Therefore, the most fundamental lesson of history is be careful what you ask for. A society that chooses safety above freedom may temporarily get what they desire, but in the long run, the economy and society as a whole will collapse. Due to my peaceful non-cooperation, I went to prison. I describe my prison experience in my book, True Freedom is Inside of Me. Please visit my bilingual website. The only solution is very simple. I must connect to my true self, my soul. Easy to say, not so easy to do. Please go into action now and make the choice between listening to your ego-mendacious mind and the external authorities, or listening to your soul, the internal authority. I consult and offer tools so that you can find your individual solution by making contact with your soul. Your soul will then effectively guide you through the upcoming, long-lasting, turbulent transition. Infinite love.